Okay, so we would like to write this method that is going to take an array and it will just use the heap sort as a way of sorting an array. The way we insert them is going to be, we want them to be sorted, and then so what we'd like to do is to use an array to create a heap using this bottom up, and then we dequeue. Every time we dequeue it's going to be a min, because what we have here is a min heap. So the minimum is going to be the one that is going to be dequeued every time, and once we have that minimum we just put it in back to the array. And the result of that is that we're going to be sorting the array using this bottom-up approach in the heap. And also would like to do that only by just updating this min heap, so we can include this heap sort, given that it gives an array. So let's just do that. Okay, so would like to add to this method and then once we have this heap sort, what shall we do? What is the first thing that we'd like to do? Bottom up? What do you mean bottom up? Call bottom up? Let me just put the navigator here so we can see the content of the class. Now, do you have something called bottom up? We have? We have build heap bottom up. What does this do? We try to find the last parent, which is just return an int, and then it percolates down. What does this percolate down? Well, it checks this int. This int is what? Is it an index or the value? And then what is t then? Is what? Generic what? I mean, this is generic value.
It doesn't take a value. It takes the index of the last.
So if we have this test in, this is what we used yesterday, right? When we were testing to see if after inserting it was inserted the right way. So when we chose to do this something like bottom up, this was option 2. So when we went to option 2, we just inserted the values. Now these values assume that the min heap is, the t is the integer, right? So the integer is the t. But here, if we're more general, t is more general. But what is the t? This is the value that we put inside the heap. The values. So either it's a string or an integer or whatever. Now my question was, when we were here in the built heap bottom up and we have this percolate down, this I here is what?
Index of the last parent.
So that's the index. That's not the value of the number inside that heap, inside that node. It's the index of that. and then now this heap is implemented as an array list. So that's the array. So that's why we put this index of that. So this, when you use this get, you give it an index and it gives you what's the value inside that index, and that's what we're doing here. That's what this get gives you. This is an array list. The get is the get that returns an element from the array, returns the element at the specified position in this list. So this is the position, then we return that element. Is that okay? So now this build bottom up is just going to look. I'm sorry? We need to call min heap to choose. I don't get your. I need to go up. The constructor, you mean? You'd like to create a constructor, but where this heap sort is a method inside this. So now what I need to do is that when I'm given an array, I would like to put this array inside the heap. Right? So how can I do that? A for loop? Line 21. The min heap. This takes an array, and then it will put it and build it bottom up. It will put it in the array list and bottom up. So what should I do then? What should I type? If you'd like to use this min heap, okay, I'm going to use this min heap. That's it. I'll give it the array. But why can't I do this? Well, this is a constructor. Is this how I use a constructor? No. Just used as like a method, a void method that you call? That's not how a constructor is used. Super? This? Then you give it the array. Call to this must be first statement in the constructor. So this heap sort is not a constructor, so it doesn't work. So what should I do? Should I do what? Like just copy this? Well, that's a solution. That's a solution. Just copy this and put it there. So we can just initialize. Or, what does this do? This constructor, what does it do? What does it do? It's going to update this heap, this instance variable. With what? With whatever the code is doing. What I can do that by calling the constructor, and then by constructing again this heap. And this time, new heap, what is this? Min heap. And then use the one that takes the array. And this should be, well, I need to do this. Is this working? Why is... So min heap t is converted to, cannot be converted to array list t, where t is a type variable. T extends, well, this is because of, now this t is not going to, but this is what I'd like to do, right? Something like this. To call the constructor, there's no constructor takes this. Now I have incompatible type. Because this, by doing this new min heap, I'm just trying to put this old class inside here. Well, there's no way that I can do that. So I just need to copy and paste.
Why can't you use the constructor?
Because the constructor constructs a min heap, which is, this is the data type or object of min heap, and this is an array list. This is not a min heap, this is an array list. That means I can have called new array list. This is what I can construct, an array list. That's why this heap is an array list, as I can create an array list. Is the constructor of an array list of any subclass of this array list. So that's why I cannot just do that. So basically I just need to call the same thing here, do exactly the same thing, copy and paste. But I don't like copy and pasting. So what I'm going to do,
What if you make the class extend with array list?
extend array list. Well, then we're going to, that's going to maybe allow me to create a min heap as an array list, but logically it doesn't make sense. But I can do this, for example. So what I just did, I put this code here, so I can just now do the same thing if I'd like to call it init, not with this one actually, in this one. So this is going to initialize with the array. Let me call it initialize. So this is basically the same code that was here, that I just put into a method, and then I'm just calling the same method, so I don't need to copy and paste. But basically I just need to do this. I need to initialize, and then add elements, one element at a time. And actually I could just do that also using the for each. Anyways. But then I'm going to build the heap bottom up afterwards. Now just with this initialize now, that I just, in the heap sort that I just used, this is just going to take the array that I have given as an argument, and then put it in a heap. Now what I need to do is that, as long as I have an element in the queue, in this heap, I just would like to dequeue, and then put it into the array. So the first part is take the array, first use this here to create a heap using this bottom up. That's what we just did with this, which is basically just use the same code that was there before, but just put it in a method so we can use it. If you just copy and paste, that's going to be working fine. But I just don't like copying and pasting, because if it's the same code, you should put it in a method and use it many times. So if you would like to make a change, it will be reflected everywhere. Now this is going to build the heap bottom up. And then, now what I need to do, I need to have a for loop. For what? So what kind of for loop do you want? What kind of for loop should I use? Am I going to use a for loop which is the one like for each element in the array? Or just for I 0 until whatever
because we
dot
know
let.
the length of the array.
We know the length, so we can use basically this for until what?
Array dot length.
Array dot length, because we have it. So that's an easier way to do that without taking too much. And then what do I want to do? I would like to dequeue and put it inside
Array.
the array. So array I
Array I
equal to
dequeue.
dequeue. Is that it?
Yes.
Now this just initializes the heap with the array and then builds it bottom up. So we have the array now as a heap, a min heap. So the topmost, the element, the node at the root is always going to be the smallest element of that array. So when I'm dequeuing, I'm just going to put that smallest in the first index. And then I'm going to dequeue again, which is going to be the second smallest, into the array again, into the next index, and so on. So this is going just to sort the array using the heap. And that's the answer to this question. Now, if you'd like to test it, you have to put it somewhere. I prefer not to put these methods before the constructors. So it's, come on.
This was with putting everything in the head.
I'm sorry?
The issue with the method was putting everything in the head.
Which is just using the code that was already there, right?
I didn't want to copy. I didn't want to use the constructor, but
Well,
I did.
yeah, that's why I just that's why I just put it in some kind of a method. So I'm just using it. All right. Do you want to test it?
Let me.
If you'd like to test it, we need to add a new entry, and then, which is something like create the binary min heap in like a bottom up, for example, something like this, and then call it, I don't know, something like when we have to enter all the values. Or what I can do is that instead of doing the whole thing, well, we can just call this, we have the heap here, so we can just have this heap dot what is it, heap sort, and then we gave it this is a heap of ints, so new let me just do something. So this is the integer. I have an array here. I'm just going to use this one. I already have a variable. This array has not been initialized, so I'm just going to initialize it. So now this is not sorted. By doing this, if I display the array, or maybe for each, I think it's for each. Can I have the for each? No, it doesn't help. Okay, for every integer I in this array, I'm just going to display it. Now this I here is, and you know what, I just would like to stop, so I don't want to see anything else. System.exit, Remember this system.exit? So basically I'm shortcutting everything below. If I run, I'm just going to have these and then call the heap sort, just so I'd like to test that my method is working the way I expect it to be. So now what I'd like to see is that these numbers are going to be sorted just in one line, and then it's going to stop. So let's do that. And that's what I'm seeing. And these are the numbers, so 0, 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. And this array now was sorted using this heap. Is that okay? So I just tested my method without doing a lot of different things. Let's wrap up the video here.